Aloha, friends. Welcome to Spiraling Together, a mother-daughter healing journey.
I'm the daughter, Chloe.
And I'm the mother, Valerie.
Our mission is to create a safe, nurturing space where mothers and daughters can begin a journey of healing and empowerment together.
Through heartfelt conversations, shared experiences, and our personal insights, we aim to foster deeper connections, strengthen bonds, and inspire growth.
Before we dive into today's conversation, we want to take a moment to express our heartfelt thanks to all of you who are tuning in.
Your willingness to expand and grow with us inspires us each day, and we are honored to have you as part of our community.
If you haven't already, please check out our links below and follow us on your favorite platforms so you never miss an episode.
Let's get ready to unravel the spiral
together. All right, everybody, we're on episode 3 of Spiraling Together. Today, we are diving into a topic that can transform your relationship.
Healing through communication.
Yeah, and the tools that we need to use or
that we can start implementing.
Use,
yeah. Why don't we kind of just ease in? And you just got back from a trip, right?
Yes, I did. A pretty long trip.
I know.
Yeah, I went to San Diego and Oahu and Maui and Oregon and Washington, basically.
Wow.
Yeah. It's a long time, but it was a lot of fun.
Yeah, and
learned a lot of things too.
Yeah. During that time, there was some communication between us.
Yes.
And even regarding this podcast.
Definitely.
And we learned some things.
Right.
Yeah. Because we recorded a couple of episodes and then you were gone. And then I was like, oh, how are we going to stay on this Monday schedule that we put out?
Right. We're figuring it out.
We are figuring it out. And that's the thing, is that anytime that we are, apart, which we are going to be when you're moving again.
Yes.
We have to find ways to communicate and ways to understand and be aware of what all can be going on when we're not together. Because when we're on the farm, it's pretty easy just to be like, hey, let's have a chat.
Yeah.
And let's figure things out and let's plan this and let's plan that.
It's a lot easier. It's going to be a learning curve for sure. But
yeah, and there was some things that came up. I feel that we might, if you're willing to share a little bit of
what happened.
What happened exactly, so that everyone can know how we worked through it in a healthy way. Mm-hmm. So do you want to start off?
So basically, I guess for my side, I was definitely not putting in enough effort, I will admit, to helping out with everything. I was also under the impression for most of my trip that I was going to have time, but when it wasn't exactly there, I didn't make the time because I was choosing to do other things. And
on my end, I got mad at you.
I know.
Yeah, I was disappointed. And I know that the initial, text message I sent you was like, okay, so we're launching this tomorrow. And then I was like, well, I guess we're not going to do it after all because, nothing's been done yet. And I found myself just like, breathing through it and then waiting. And I was like, you know what? I'm just going to go ahead and do this for now because it's okay. We made a commitment to put this podcast out. And I knew you had a lot of things going on. So I just breathed into it and I was like, I'm going to do this. And when she gets back, we can have a conversation together about it instead of me trying to make her or force her to do the thing. And I think that's important with relationships, that if we're really truly trying to heal, even if someone doesn't uphold their side of the commitment on something, that we don't try to force them to.
Doesn't work that way.
It doesn't work. Forcing never works. So I knew that you had a lot going on, and I had a lot more free time. And I knew that this is going to unravel, and actually it's going to put things in front of us for us to heal.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so
I think another thing, like a fear of the podcast is the fact that we're working together now too, even though it's like, haha, we're just talking to each other, but it's all the stuff in the background. And I've seen the ways that work affects relationships when you work together. So I was a little bit scared about that. And I also realized that I think what we've talked about in other episodes is like the perfectionism. I think that started to hold me back too. And part of me just wanted to be like, I don't even want to try right now because I feel like I'm just going to get upset, but I'm on vacation. But I'm not trying to make excuses.
No. These are all real things that come up. And on my end, I also was like, well, I'm not going to do it as aesthetically pretty as like you can. But I was like, at the same time, it doesn't really matter. Like, we just have to go for it. And so I was like, I'm going to do the best I can. And I know eventually we will change it up and it'll be okay. But I think the point of it is they're always like, people have two different realities happening. And sometimes we are not able to show up in the ways that we wanted to because there's that fear inside of us that's holding us. Mm-hmm. And I know for me, it's like, I am ready to get our message out. So I'm like raring to go. But I also know that I've had a few years of things building up. And so we're here. And, and I know that we're just, as long as when you're faced with any type of I don't want to say it was a disagreement, but it was more of just like we didn't fully commit. I didn't fully commit by telling you my expectations. So I didn't say, Chloe, these are all the things that you are going to be responsible for doing. And in my head, I was like, oh, well, I did this, this, and this. And she, there's these things that start building up. I mean...
Which I also, I think with everything that we are doing, there's a lot that goes into it that we're both not very well versed on. Even like I'm 20 and it's social media. Like, I don't try that hard for social media. I haven't necessarily wanted to, but everything like YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, blah, blah, blah. It's a lot of stuff.
It is.
And it does add up. And
and I'll be honest, at first I was like, oh my gosh, I have to do all of these things and I don't want to do these all alone. And but then I went, you know what? Yes, I do. I do want to do this because I do want to share our message. And I believe what our message is important. And so it started out like, but then it was like, this is kind of fun. And now I get to teach you some stuff. And then now we get to learn more together. And now we know in the future, when you do travel, like
we talk
about all the expectations we have. And then when we make a commitment, we truly stick to it, which comes into being able to speak your truth with the people that you're around.
Exactly.
And holding that space of, I made this commitment and this is what I need to do, So that's just like a really part of effective communication is doing what you say you're going to do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think, yeah, that's a good segue to actually maybe give our tools into what we're going to continue to work on and
Yes.
etc. But yeah, that was a little recap of us and our
Just like the last couple of weeks of
figuring it out.
figuring things out and the things that came up, which I realize doing this podcast is going to be a way that we continue to heal things within our relationship and then with relationship with others. So I fully expected some things to like hit the fan, you know?
Oh,
I was like,
definitely.
oh, there's going to be some stuff coming up and this is great because we get to talk about it. And thank you for being vulnerable. I'm always going to appreciate that
Yeah.
when you
Thanks
do.
for not being afraid to call me out too.
Yeah.
It's a good thing.
And calling you out in a way that
Is not threatening or
saying that
mean.
you're wrong or that's,
Yeah.
you know, ultimately makes you feel unsafe. And so, yeah, with that segue, effective communication, you know, sometimes generationally communication can be a little difficult.
Yeah.
Like I realize that sometimes I think that you will want me to text you instead of calling you because I guess I have that in my head that like texting is your like
Generations.
and can you just tell me maybe like honestly how you feel about
I think the thing with texting versus calling is like, yeah, I feel like when I was younger, I wanted to text more just because, I don't know, I guess in a sense it's easier. But now that I think when you get older, you're like, okay, I just want to talk to this person and get through it. Because a lot of the time over text too, you don't actually know how someone is talking to you. They're also not necessarily being attentive to a conversation because you can text someone and they have the opportunity to write back immediately or not and wait hours. And I'm a victim of that now because, well, I don't know. It's like you look at a text and you're like, I don't want to reply right now. You know? And it feels wrong to do, but I do think not just me, but a lot of people do that now. And it's almost a way of like, I get to it later. Which is not very nice.
and it's also when you receive a text message you can make stories up about what the text message means because you're not actually able to hear the tone of someone's voice or the way they're saying it. So depending on what you're doing or what you're feeling, you can literally create more behind the energy of the text message.
And I've definitely done that a lot.
Yeah. So I think the bottom line is when you need to have a conversation and maybe it's one from the heart, it is best to call and see if that person is available to have a conversation so that they understand that, you know, maybe you're not mad at them, but you just need clarification and you want to make sure that when we could segue into the actual phone call, it's important that the person on the other end, if you feel like you have a heart matter, that they are fully attentive during the phone call so that you know that they're listening to you fully.
Definitely. Yeah. And I would also say 9 times out of 10, if someone calls me as opposed to texting me, I'm usually going to answer that phone call because I guess there's also almost more of like an urgency to it, even if it's not an urgent phone call. Like, I think it's in a way, it's like if someone calls me and I purposely don't pick it up, I feel mean because I feel like I am ignoring them. But a text feels less urgent. So you're less likely to reply.
So I
That's
want to
just
kind
how
of,
my
I
brain
want to talk
works.
about that a little bit
Mm-hmm.
because I know that it seems like a phone call might be urgent, or you said you feel mean.
Mm.
For me, if I don't have energy, like, and I feel completely tapped out,
Yeah.
and I see the phone ringing, sometimes I just can't answer it because I know that I won't fully be able to give my attention. So sometimes
True.
if a phone call comes through, I will text back knowing that I cannot fully give my attention, knowing that I don't know, I'm out and about somewhere and I'm not able to have a conversation. I will text back and say, "Hey, I'm shopping right now, or I'm about to take a nap. Could I call you? Is it possible that I call you, or is it something?" Cuz if it was like an emergency and it was urgent, I feel like the person would definitely like call you a lot,
Right. That's
you know?
definitely true.
Yeah. But if it's something where you can say, is it okay if I give you a call in 30 minutes to an hour? Because you know that you will have finished your nap. You know that you will not be at the checkout line at the shopping, you know, after shopping or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So that's, you know, something we can take into account, that we don't always have to be available when we know that we're not able to be.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So this is fun. We're just having these conversations and then looking at this iPad like, okay, what do we talk about
What's
next?
next?
Yeah. So I think as far as when we do have conversations with people and they're coming to us with these heart matters, to be able to have empathy and compassion for what they're bringing to us.
Definitely. And showing that with your eye contact, and I mean, if you can,
Yeah,
it's just like being an active listener as well.
definitely.
It's really important. Like if someone's coming to you with something, like they have hurt feelings or whatever the matter is, just making sure that they're capable of receiving and that you're also not going to go into defense mode and be open to hearing what they have to say. Because I think one of the most important things to know when someone comes to you with an issue is that they're coming to you because they want to fix it, because they want to keep the relationship in a positive light, or they don't want to ruin everything, but they don't want to resent you. So they're coming to you to solve a problem, and your reaction is hopefully like, yes, it sucks that I disappointed this person. It really sucks that I made them feel this way, but they're coming to me because they care. They don't want to resent me.
That's really beautiful to say it that way. I really appreciate that aspect, or that perspective, actually, that when someone is coming, I love that. Yeah, it's true. And so just knowing that, like maybe bringing that into your heart first, that this person actually is really wanting to mend this, whatever happened. Yeah.
Right.
So thank you for bringing that in.
Yeah.
It's like really all relationships. I mean, mom and daughter relationships, or any relationship, it's important to have the conversations where you can truly understand how the other person feels and has that need for connection and love.
Yeah.
And I think that's all any relationship really wants, is to know there's connection and love. And so when something comes up, being just able to stop what you're doing, and maybe you can't at that moment. So what would you do in that scenario? Like, what if you really needed to, I'm not trying to put you on the spot. No, I'm not trying to put you on the spot. What I'm just trying to do is, okay, let's say that you really needed to talk about something because it was very pressing for you, but the other person wasn't, you could tell that they just weren't in the right space to talk to you.
I mean, personally, I definitely, if I have something that comes up, I usually am not going to immediately say anything anyways, like regardless kind of how that person feels, or I can sense from them, just as a way of like, I want to be able to fully understand what I'm feeling and why they made me feel the way I feel. And a lot of the time, like when people trigger you, it's not exactly like, I mean, I know they didn't mean to, for the most part. Like, well, I guess it depends.
Well, so what I want to say to this is, part of that is like your attachment style.
True.
And a lot of people, well, there's all ranges of people. Some people can sit back, and what you just said was like, I want to see how this makes me feel, and I don't react immediately.
Right.
I'm quite the opposite.
Yes.
I mean, I've come a long way, but there used to be a part of me that would react immediately. Mm-hmm. And I would also need to fix things immediately with someone else, because I was a lot more anxious and, needing to make sure that you still love me and make sure that I didn't, and so I think there's
both sides.
There's both sides. Some people can sit back, but some people need to fix it immediately. Mm-hmm. And that's where, like, that creating the safety within yourself, if you're someone that is like me, where I used to just like react and need you to know that, I love you and I need to fix this right now. Being able to breathe and get back into your body and creating a sense of safety and not trying to force a conversation on someone else.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's, you're totally right. I definitely have work to do in that aspect, because I do think my like, oh, I'm just gonna step away from it. Yes, that is my attachment style, because I mean, when people do hurt me, I just, walls go back up.
Avoid.
Get away from me. Yeah, avoid them. I have come a long way. I know I'm still working on it, but because I used to just, I mean, with other relationships, like romantic relationships, I would just mentally be like, okay, they hurt me this time. They hurt me this time. Oh, one more, you got to go. Like, I wouldn't even talk about it. Now I'm at the point where I can talk about it. It's still really hard, but
with mother-daughter relationships, like, you're kind of like, you can't just keep, I mean, you could keep keeping the score, but it's most likely that you're going to be in each other's lives if you choose to. Whereas in a romantic relationship, you can end that.
Exactly.
But a mother-daughter relationship, it's harder to end that. It's
definitely hard.
And yeah, what I was just going to say about your approach now, and every time you say I'm working on it, remember, this is a lifelong process. Yeah. Really. I mean, it is, we're learning lessons and we're undoing a certain way of being. And so I'm still working on things all the time. So just know that there's not like, we're not going to reach this pinnacle of like, everything is going to be completely perfect in this human experience. Exactly. So I want to give you so much credit, and I will every episode. The things that you're saying and the ways that you're showing up is very admirable. And so
Thank you.
I'm always going to throw that in. But I do like your approach in the way of not trying to make things happen in the moment that you get triggered.
Mm-hmm. But I will also say my response is the freeze.
Okay.
Like, I do not have fight or flight. I freeze. So I do think that's another part of it. I just shut down if it's that bad of getting that triggered.
And I fight.
Yeah.
We're working on those things.
Exactly.
So if we could, okay, let's just say that we were safe. We felt safe within, and we didn't go into that fight or flight or survival. To have a conversation with another person, it's actually best when you are getting triggered to, if you can be conscious of the trigger, if you can be aware that right now what you're doing is really bothering me or hurting me, if you can take a deep breath and not try to fix it in that moment. Because most times when you're having a conversation and it could be heated and both people are trying to figure things out, whatever, if you try in that moment to fix it when things are raw, that's kind of almost the worst time to do it, because you think that this happened and they think that that happened, and you're not able to really like make it work in that moment. It's very rare. But if you can like take it in and then maybe come back to it later, if it's not something super pressing, you can say, remember 2 days ago when this happened, I felt mad in that moment, like bringing in the way I feel and not trying to fix it in the moment. Like what we did
Exactly.
when you got back home last night in the hot tub.
Yeah. Yeah. Which I also wanted to bring this up because I feel like a common phrase, I guess, I mean, this doesn't correlate exactly to mother and daughter, but just a lot of like relationships or like marriages is like, don't go to bed angry, or like, I'm not going to go to bed angry. And I believed that for a really long time because I was like, yeah, that's messed up. Like, why would you, want to go to bed mad at somebody, blah, blah, blah. But I think at this stage, I've recognized like not everything gets fixed exactly when it happens. And that's fine. You and your partner or your mom or dad or etc. like you're always going to need time to figure out what to say, how to say things, both be in the right space to actually hold for each other and understand each other. And what you were talking about earlier too is like we all create our own stories in our heads. Sometimes, yes, it's going to fester. But that's when you have to realize, okay, I need to take a deep breath. I understand what I'm doing is not healthy for me. And they don't even know what's going on in my head. I'm punishing myself for what?
Exactly. That's the last episode that we had we talked a lot about the nervous system regulation and how it's important to be regulated, because when we're unregulated, the easiest way that I've ever been able to know when I'm unregulated is when those stories are just repeating in my head. And I'm like, well, I'm going to say this to her and I'm going to say that to her. And if she would have done this, it's like that repeating thing that goes on. And then once you become aware of that's happening, you can say, all right, I am going to choose to breathe. Because like you said, They don't know that you're doing this. What are you, punishing them in their head? You're only hurting yourself. You're raising your own cortisol. You're stressing your own body systems out. And for what? Because you think that somehow that's going to like do something?
Yeah.
No, it's really hurting you, like you said. So it's finding a practice that gets you regulated, that allows you to come in and know that this is part of life. I don't want to stay in a trauma drama. I want to actually fix this.
Yeah.
So it is extremely important to find practices when you are working on communication with your mom or your daughter or any other relationship. Find practices that you can become regulated, and that you, if you need to pause, like I really love the way you talked about that common misconception of never go to bed angry. That's forcing you to fix something. Now you can tell someone that you love them and still not have talked through whatever the problem is, because you do love them.
Yeah.
But we've learned to withhold love when communication breaks or when something happens. We withhold love. But no matter whatever comes up between you and me, I'm always going to love you.
Exactly.
So I want to keep my heart open, even if I'm angry, even if I'm confused, even though, because I can feel this, and especially in my marriage, I will feel my heart shut down, and I will feel when I get angry that I cannot love him. And then I'm like, no, we have misunderstandings. We have miscommunications in all of our relationships. And the moment that I start feeling like my heart is closing off, I'm choosing that wall. But I want to open it and be like, this is a normal process. I want to keep my heart open, even if we can't work it out right in this moment and I need time to process. We'll come back to it.
Yeah, I've definitely done the withholding love thing with other relationships. And it's hard because in the moment you're like retaliating and you're like trying to punish them because you think that they did something wrong. And yeah, it's not, I don't know.
I understand.
It's bad.
Yeah, it is bad, but that is like that's what the majority, that's what we've learned. We have learned to withhold love when things get hard. We haven't learned proper communication techniques. And so that's what we are focusing on in this episode, and we're focusing on, it's a continuation of learning. So there are tons of resources. There are tons and tons of resources and books like nonviolent communication and other ways of learning to be in practicing. I know there's one of my favorite authors, they're Matt and Ash, the yoga couple. They have 2 books, The Inner Work and now The Inner Work of Relationships. And there's a part of that book that literally has step by step how to start, communicating in a healthy way. And so it's utilizing resources, even if it takes you getting a notebook or one of those index cards and writing down like how to say these new things. It's a practice. It doesn't just come to you.
Exactly.
And
it's hard to rewire your communication skills.
Exactly.
Because, for me, I'm like it's hard for me to talk about hard things or have difficult conversations because I just cry. And then I don't want to talk because I'm crying. Or it's like the idea of disappointing someone. It sucks. Like, you don't want them to think that they hurt you, or like, I don't know. I just have a hard time having hard conversations.
You know what I do?
Mm.
Not so much with you, but I start getting angry.
Mm.
And then I start trying to force them to see my point.
Mm.
And that's not effective
Yeah.
at all. You can't force someone into seeing your point, or you just can't. That's like
true.
controlling and manipulating the conversation. And I know that in my own relationship with my mom, I learned that type of communication,
Mm-hmm.
which my mom and I have repaired our relationship in such a
Yay.
beautiful way. But you do kind of repeat what you see.
Yeah.
And that's what we're trying to undo right now. Because at the end of the day, again, we all want to be loved and heard. And so to be able to sit down and have a conversation with someone else where you both can be present and you both can use like I statements instead of you did this and you did that, and just say I feel hurt because of what happened and I really want to repair this with you.
Mm-hmm.
You know.
Yeah, I know. We started talking about that more recently using the I statements, which I don't think a lot of like, my at my age and like the media I consume, I don't get a lot of stuff like that. And I think that is really important to learn, because when you are having a difficult conversation, if you're blaming someone and shaming someone and making them feel like this awful bad guy, they're just gonna get upset. And then for them to feel like that, you stripped them from like who they really are. And now sometimes they're just going to think, oh my gosh, like I am horrible. Like I made them feel like this. Oh my gosh. And like most of the time when people hurt your feelings, they don't mean to. And I think that's another thing you personally have to understand before you go into a conversation. And that is why you have to say, I feel like this. I know you probably didn't mean to do this, but I do need to tell you so that you understand, and, hopefully we can work on this. But when you are saying you did blah, 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 and you're making me mad, it's all you're not taking accountability that like, you can't do that.
No, anytime there's two people, you both showed up in some way.
Mm-hmm.
And we're not talking about extreme cases here.
Yeah.
Yeah. I really liked the way you talked about that you don't see this communication very often, mm-hmm. and why it is so important. And it's so extremely important not to shame someone else. Because as soon as you shame someone, they shut down and then they can't even hear what you're saying.
Mm-hmm.
And when you go into a conversation with someone you truly care and love about, what is the end goal? It's for you to both come back and maybe learn something and understand. It's not for one of you to win. It's not a win-lose.
Mm-hmm.
There's not a superior or an inferior. And it should be a win-win.
Exactly.
Because we're both winning when we're loving. If one person is winning and the other person is losing, then there's not true love. That's not coming from the heart. That's coming from I'm superior to you.
Mm-hmm. That's
so
sad.
Yeah.
But you're very right. But I like what you said. The win-win is when you both love each other. Yeah. And if it's not win-win, there's not real love.
Yeah. And so if you know know that that's what you want to create in your relationship with your mother, daughter, or anyone else, that there's always going to be a win for both of you, then you really have to go into the conversation knowing that that is the outcome. And something I've been doing a lot is just holding my hand over my heart and being like, okay, the heart is where the true love comes from. Anywhere else, this isn't going to work. So if I can't be in my heart for a conversation, I'm not ready to have the conversation. And I can't force someone else to either.
Yeah.
So it does take time and it does take pausing.
I did also want to say, I do think that out of a lot of mother-daughter relationships that I have witnessed, I feel very lucky to have you as my mother. I feel like we've had a very easy going relationship. And I think we've been like besties for a really long time. And I am really lucky and grateful for that, because I do know a lot of girls that do not go through the same thing. And I can see how hard it is to not have, oh, it makes me want to cry.
It's okay.
A mom that's not supportive. So I just want to send like extra love to those mothers and daughters who feel that pain.
Yeah. Thank you for saying that. And I love you so much. Thank you for being so vulnerable right now and letting these tears out, because we really, truly have had a very beautiful relationship. And I will say it's because I didn't have the same. I wanted to, and I didn't. And I saw the pain that a mother could instill on a daughter. And I promised that I would never do that to you. And yeah, it is, it's beautiful that we've been able to move through that. But I do know what it is like to have a tumultuous relationship with a mother, and how upsetting that is. And I'm just, thank you for saying all those beautiful things to me. Thank you for being here. And there's a reason why we are showing up here, to show that it is possible to heal relationships.
Yeah.
If both people are willing. Yeah. So as we wrap up this episode, hopefully that you can see how important communication is in a relationship, and being able to create that win-win, being able to come from the heart, being able to use the I language, being able to wait until it is a time where both can be attentive to what is happening and what's going on. Yeah, so thank you all for joining today.
We appreciate you being here.
We absolutely do. And if you haven't subscribed yet, please subscribe. We are on all podcast platforms now, including YouTube.
Yay!
And in our next episode,
we're going to be talking about self-love, the importance of that,
and nurturing ourselves through this healing process. So,
because it's difficult.
yeah. Yeah. So that's a wrap.
Yes.
I love you, babe.
I love you.
And just remember, don't judge her.
Just love her.